Welcome along, one and all. This is PSGL Season 38 PS F3, brought to you by GT Omega. As Season 38 continues to progress, we arrive tonight at a circuit known for throwing all sorts of curveballs at the drivers and providing a test like no other. We are at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal for round 4 of the championship, the Canadian Grand Prix. To take you through the action tonight, you'll be listening to myself, Daka, and alongside me in the commentary box, I'm delighted to say that he is back. I've got Ghost with me once again. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you, Daka. It is good to be back. Apologies for my absence last week, but I hear that my replacement did an excellent job covering for me, so thank you very much for that. But yeah, good to be back nonetheless, and at such an iconic circuit as the Canadian Grand Prix. I'm very much looking forward to this, Daka.
Certainly, the same goes for myself. So we have just 13 on the grid tonight, but hopefully that's not going to impact the action too much as we get this qualifying session underway. Of course, quite a short track here, so the drivers will have plenty of opportunity to reset, rejuvenate, and get back out there and attack the track once again in between runs. So you're going to see very fast action here, despite the 13 car grid. And IRT Nick, who had that brilliant comeback drive last time out in Spa, is going to kick things off in the Williams. So next round, that iconic final chicane. I'll leave it to you, Ghost, to take us through a lap at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve.
Here we go then, down towards turn 1. You're going to see plenty of overtaking opportunities here in the race, and through turn 2 very quickly from IRT Nick through those first 2 corners. Now heading down towards turns 3 and 4. Very tricky chicane, completely blind as you turn in, but it opens up on the exit as long as you get the turning correct. Now through the flat out turn 5 and into turn 6 and 7. This chicane, another tricky one to get the power down, especially out of turn 7. You can see Nick getting a little bit of rear end as he comes out of it. Now down towards turn 8 and 9, another tricky set of corners. At turn 9 again, the traction so difficult to get down. You might see someone on the left hand wall on the exit there at some point today. And now down into the brakes, into the hairpin of turn 10. Nicely done from Nick, but maybe a little bit too much. Didn't use all the track on exit, but DRS open and using all of that ERS down this long casino straight, all the way down towards the final 12-13 chicane. Going to see some overtakes down towards here as well, and Nick doesn't hit the wall of champions, gets nicely through, easy to invalidate at many points on this circuit, but especially that last corner, and Nick, a 1 minute 8.852 is the initial pace.
Triska follows, but invalid. Would have gone fastest on an 8.7. Expect the lap times to be close here. And there's last week's winner, NLR Tom, kicking off his session with a strong lap. Just 100th of a second clear of Galaxy Slayer, who follows next. You're seeing these times come in rapidly at this stage. Alex Marciano, championship leader, goes into 4th position then. A rarity as behind Lolo. Wow! 108.3 or a banker lap for the Ferrari. Man, wow, that is absolutely electric to kick off this session from Lolo. Yeah, that is going to be very tough to beat. Vessel is in the back half of the lap, 41.5 through the first 2 sectors. The Haas driver comes up to the line. It's going to be a 109.6, goes 7th for the moment. But Lolo, my oh my, that was impressive. Of course, just one top 5 in this season so far at COTA. The only point scored this season for the Ferrari driver, but that was pretty astonishing for a first lap.
That's an absolutely unbelievable banker lap from Lolo. Like you say, considering where he's been this season so far, was it rain?
I swear I just saw a couple of drops. I'm not too sure.
No, I think you're right. I think it might just be, I don't know, this new update has messed with some of the graphics and shadows, obviously, but I think that's rain, Daka. I think that might be it for this qualifying session. If so, it is. It's definitely rain. It is raining, so those first laps. And Lolo CJK is going to be on pole position, it looks like, unless it dries out later in the session.
Wow, that is just remarkable. How on earth has this come to pass? The pressure would have been on these drivers infinitely. They must have known that rain was coming. Maybe not quite so soon, but yeah, I just saw it start to tick down. Of course, only 8 drivers have managed to get those runs in. NLR Spicer, 3rd place in the championship, part of that Constructors' Championship leading team of McLaren, has a massively crucial lap now, and we're going to have to try judge this. Oh, look at the sliding, nearly finds the wall of champions then, does the McLaren. Again, 3rd in the championship, probably hasn't had, despite that, the season that you'd have wanted up to this point, still soldiering on. Now, let's keep an eye on that first sector time, but you can see the wheel spin coming out of turn at 2. Those slick tyres, those soft tyres, just not quite finding the grip that he would have wanted. The first sector time should be in the high 18s or even the low 19s, and that's a 19.8. It's far off the pace from NLR Spicer, and dare I say, as you said, unless we have a drastic change in conditions, that order, at least for the drivers that have set times, might be the final one.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I think that would probably explain why so many drivers came out at the same time. But those drivers who got out very, very early as Spicer locks the rears dramatically into the hairpin as he tries to get a time on the board, but it's not going to be anywhere near the top 8, I don't think. But yeah, those drivers who got those early laps in and didn't invalidate have benefited massively, but none other than Lolo CJK, an absolutely astonishing banker lap as Spicer invalidates as well at the Wall of Champions chicane. It would have been an 11.3, which would put him P9, and again he goes sliding into turn 1, but there's nothing out on track anymore for those slick tyres. And wow, what an absolute disaster for everyone from 9th down, but especially the likes of Spicer, who's going to be starting this race from at best 9th place.
And of course, these guys that haven't set times, even though the conditions are far past their best, they still have to go out there, and they are doing so. Everyone out on track that hasn't set a time, AGK Racing is the furthest back on those slick tyres too, because you want to be, in this case, for these drivers that are further down the field, one of the first cars to get over the line. Make sure you at least get, well, maybe not the best of the conditions, but the most manageable at the very least. And Spicer kind of lost that opportunity. He's actually invalidated again on this second lap, trying to weave the tyres. Maybe he'll go over to intermediates at some point, but really getting over that line first, getting a clean lap in early is what's going to matter here. And Triska is doing just that in that Alpine. It is not going to trouble any of the drivers that have already set times, but that could be a very important lap for Triska himself. Then, as you can see, Spicer comes across, would have been faster, but also invalidated. And Triska, we'll see how it measures up to the rest as Napple invalidates too, but Triska, as you can see now, has had a better run at the conditions than everyone behind him.
Yeah, and the rain's really starting to come down now, Daka. That track is getting very, very slippery, and it's soon going to be intermediate time, and that is the first sign that this is not going to get any better. It's not going to dry out later. Alex Marciano retires in the pit lane, knowing he can't improve. Even Spicer retires in the pit lane, even though there was still time to gain positions, and that is... well, I'm not gonna pass too much judgment because it must have been frustrating. But you know, you can at least try and get P9 or P11. But you know, retiring only guarantees last place. So you know, maybe he feels that it doesn't make that much of a difference. But on a track that's so difficult to overtake, even in the situation he's in, retiring this early is an interesting move, I will say.
Yeah, I would certainly, well, you've got to try and salvage whatever you can, like the session hasn't gone your way, DRS disabled, so I imagine maybe, because I did see AGK Racing deciding to bail on lap 2 and going to the pits, and I wonder if that's going to be going back out for intermediates. You know, you've got to try and seize any kind of advantage you can. Napple has invalidated that last lap, would have been an 18.4, and backs off over the line, and actually also retires on track. So yeah, I'm a little bit baffled by this, but it looks as though we're probably not going to get a whole lot more on-track running unless some of the drivers are feeling very charitable tonight. So I guess we need to already transition into a little bit of a podcast setting potentially. We can talk about the current situation though, and it's actually something that we mentioned We are going to see AGK Racing going back out on track, so that's good stuff at least. So we're going to get some intermediate running in this session. But something that we discussed actually just before getting going here was to the extent, and maybe the results in this qualifying session may actually contradict that, but to the extent that the season has been defined by those two McLaren drivers of Tom and Spicer, and of course the championship leader Alex, those three have essentially been at the fore in all three of the opening rounds throughout this season. And I'd say in a league such as PSGL, that isn't something you see very often, a tier being completely monopolised by such a small group of drivers.
Yeah, certainly not. And they've really stamped their authority on this division so far this season. But for a while, it looked like Alex Marciano would be the only one at the front, just completely dominating, because the first 2 or 3 races, he was simply on another level than the likes of Tom and Spicer. But then they came back into it. Alex, he came second last time out, and to one of the McLarens of NLR Tom, and well, he's still the championship leader, like you say, but it must have rattled him a little bit to, after dominating the first couple of races, to suddenly not be winning that time. But I think he'll still be feeling fairly confident, even with the McLarens catching up to him. And it depends how this track goes for him. Tom's in a good position now, but Alex at least managed to get a lap on the board into the top 5, whereas Spicer is going to be starting this race from last place, because AGK Racing just has to get across the line and he'll gain 2 free positions, which again puts the baffling decision to retire early into perspective. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I think the rest of the grid could well be fighting for scraps in terms of the podium positions if this carries on. But we saw last season how the pendulum swung around between several drivers, and who knows, it could happen again. It's still early doors.
Yeah, that awesome title fight we had between Coolman, Finley and Spicer. We hope to see a repeat of that this season, that is for sure. We're tracking the second Aston Martin reserve driver. AGK Racing has decided to persevere in this session. Will be rewarded at least with P11 on a 1:17 flat, so only a couple of seconds off what the last of the slick times were. I think it's going to be difficult. We actually are seeing Triska and Moranvi going out trying to improve, but I don't think the speed is there in the circuit anymore to find that times, and the sector times are verifying that, I do think. So I don't think we're going to see any changes to the results. So well, I guess we can talk about the front of the grid in this state, because well, Lola, we've mentioned just how I was expecting the pole to be in the low 108s, but getting that on the first and well, as it turns out, only run is mighty impressive. And I think some of the other drivers, I mean, you have to be scratching your heads, right? Even for Tom, Tom gaining, you would think, on his championship rivals should be happy, but if you're 3.5 tenths off, you do have to be scratching your head a little bit.
Yeah, you do. I mean, it's just an imperious time, especially under the heavy pressure of knowing that the rain was coming. They must all have known. So it looked like Tom, Galaxy Slayer, Nick, Alex Marciano, they're all very close, within 1.5 tenths. And I know that's more around Canada than a lot of other tracks, but even so, that it's quite close under pressure laps. And then Lolo comes along, a man who's not really been in the prospect of a podium or a win or even pole position so far this season, and destroys all of them. It's an intimidating lap, I have to say, and Tom's going to be thinking, well, if he's got race pace to match that, I'm going to have to focus on the cars behind.
Yeah, absolutely. But of course, as always on F124, it isn't easy to pull away. So we'll see that as well, Tom decides to retire just in the pit lane there. Moranvi is still running out there on the track, and not that far down. He seems to actually be finding fairly decent pace, all things considered, in these intermediates. But ultimately, it's not going to mean a whole lot in this session. Moranvi in that kick sober coming down the casino back straight now towards that final chicane. Let's see, is he going to send it or is he going to dive into the pits? It is going to be to the pit lane. That will probably be it for on-track running. So, thanks to Moranvi and AGK and Triska for giving us a little bit of entertainment. Actually, AGK has decided to go back out on the circuit. So, I don't know. I'm not saying that we are going to get rain. In fact, these drivers don't know because the lobby settings will be a reset after we restart to get the collisions turned on in the lobby settings. I'm wondering actually if we're going to get there may have been a request to retire from the session. I'm not too sure. I'll have to have a look at that. No, it doesn't look like that. But anyway, drivers seem to be voluntarily retiring. But AGK is still out there, and I do wonder, maybe entertaining the prospect of yet another wet race. Again, we don't know what the weather settings are going to be, but just maybe trying to get a little bit of practice in case that eventuality comes to pass. Now the only driver in the session.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you can get some wet practice in case it happens. And he's going to have the most wet laps under his belt of any driver in this session. So, you know, why not? If he feels like he wants to have some practice, he's still got 2 minutes left in the session to do it. And he's staying out. He's going for it. And, you know, not to be a sort of call-out post on the commentary, but, you know, Spies are making fun of AGK for staying out here and fighting on inters for last place, as he puts it, but the only person I see in last place at the moment is Spicer because he didn't do a lap. So, you know, that's all I'll say.
Slams into the wall very hard out of turn 4 there. And we'll I think we'll keep the suspend the call-outs there. Let's keep commentator-driver relations up for a little bit longer. But I've got no issue with AGK Racing. I know a lot of the drivers may be a bit impatient. They want to get this going, but why not? I mean, as we said, you know,
exactly.
you can try and give yourself every advantage that you can, and I've got no issue. Actually, his 700's up on his time at this point. Rear locks it a little bit going into the hairpin. Let's see, of course. The speed isn't there to move any higher up. Moranvi's time nearly 2 seconds up, going onto the grass, heading out of the hairpin. So certainly still pushing things, looking towards that final chicane. There's not much at stake here, but it's nice to see a car being thrown around, headed towards that final chicane. The wall of champions looms large, but actually brushes the wall, somehow invalidates on the exit, and that's going to bring that lap to a close, and slams into the wall, losing the front wing. I think he wanted to end the session himself and ends up retiring out on track, but a bizarre qualifying session at Montreal comes to an end with a dominant pole setter and a lot of token running, I would say, by the Aston Martin of AGK Racing. That brings qualifying to a close.
I like how he tries to crash himself out the session and then has to awkwardly retire in the pause menu after it doesn't work. But yeah, it's Lolo on pole position with an astonishing lap, absolutely destroying the likes of Tom and Galaxy Slayer and Nick on the front 2 rows. Alex Marciano, championship leader, down in 5th with Slash alongside. Then it's Viaduct, Vessel, Triska, Vimaranvi, AGK Racing, the last to set a time, and then Napple and Spicer not bothering to set a time on the inters, and they'll start on the back row as a result. And it is wet. It is wet, but it is it is a restart, unfortunately. So AGK Racing, it hasn't paid off yet. It still may do, but we'll see.
Oh, I bet the eyes lit up seeing those conditions. It's not a little bit of rain either, but you know, we've had 2 of the 3 races so far this season have been wet races. I mean, Australia was wet from start to finish, and Spa was wet to ultimately full wets to ultimately ending up on slicks at the end of the race, which was quite a drastic progression. We will see rain is certainly a possibility at Canada, as I think what we've seen so far tonight is demonstrated very strongly. as we will eventually get the session proper underway very soon. Of course, if it does turn out to be a dry race, we can talk strategy again. Although I'd say that this race, well, on past games was very complex when it came to strategy. I'd say there were a lot of different options you could possibly use. On this game, it seems to be a lot more simple.
Yeah, it does. It does. And, well, the wet obviously will make things, or would make things, it would still be simple, but it would just add a little bit of spice to the mix in terms of strategy, I think. But yeah, it's tough to say, really. I can't see many drivers opting for a different strategy than most others, but we'll see what happens. Maybe, the likes of Spicer at the back of the grid, um, despite fighting for the title at the front so far this season, might go for something different to try and get himself further up the grid, because it is hard to overtake around here. Even if you've got slower cars ahead, it can be really difficult, especially if you're in a long DRS train. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens in a few minutes' time.
It is a track where it's definitely hard to move up, and I feel like what's going to make things very intriguing ahead of this race is there will be, of course, given the nature of that qualifying session, this is inevitable. You are going to see a lot of drivers that feel as though they are out of position and their pace deserves to be higher up. So that may be very possible that drivers are actually going to run off strategy to try and take advantage of that. Generally, you see most drivers starting on the hards here, going to the mediums. Nothing really too dramatic there at Montreal, but we'll see if anyone is going to go a little bit differently. That race comes up very shortly, but I'll give you a little bit of a mention to PSGL sponsors first. PSGL is sponsored by GT Omega. A link to their site is in the video description. If you feel as though you want to purchase anything from GT Omega, then their site is in the description, and a link. You can use the code PSGL at checkout for a 5% discount. We are partnered also with Sim Racing Centre, SRC for short. If you're in need of setups or coaching on the F1 game, then SRC is just the place to look. They are also in the video description down below, and there is a 10% discount on all their products at checkout using the code PSGL. Well, now we can look forward to this race. I guess we've alluded to it a couple of times already throughout this broadcast, but we can talk about the state of the standings at this stage in both drivers and constructors potentially, because of course we've mentioned Alex Marciano way out in front. Tom 12 points behind at the moment, and then we've mentioned Spicer being up there with those two guys in terms of raw pace, which I think is absolutely a fair statement to make, but 30 points off of Spicer at the moment in the title fight. So at the moment, it seems as though Alex and Tom, well, they are quite far ahead at this stage. What's going to wonder, and we did see this a bit at Spa, I know you weren't there, Ghost, but if the McLarens can try and potentially, if they do actually come together on track, because they were together on track in Australia, they were also together on track, of course, last time out at Spa, is to try and take advantage of that, and maybe try and force a two-on-one situation. They worked that very well at Spa. They ran lower wings, which infuriated Alex Marciano, who just could not, for the life of him, find a way through. But because of course we saw last season all drivers. Well, we didn't see any teams. We were using the F1 World Cars. So yeah, could we potentially see NLR Tom and NLR Spicer potentially using that to their advantage? Maybe not tonight, but in future rounds for sure.
I hope so, because it's really going to make life difficult for Alex Marciano if they do that. I've been in a two-on-one fight before, on both ends, in my past in league racing, and it's really frustrating when you're the one driver against two, because there's so many little tricks that a team of two can do to frustrate you. They can have one person undercut you, and it looks bone dry, but there are grey clouds in the sky, so who knows? But yeah, one of them can undercut you, and then the other can pit with you, and then they always come out nearby you. If you're ever 3 wide, you're always going to lose out. And you have to fight extra hard to beat a team of 2 who are both trying their best to beat you. And it could be a real frustration for Alex Marciano if that does continue to be a theme this season. Although it's with all likelihood not going to be a theme today, with Spicer being at the back of the grid, but with a grid of 13, it is going to be a little easier for Spicer to make his way back through. And of course, a safety car at any point would change everything and give him plenty more opportunities. So who knows what could happen, but it does look like NLR Tom has the edge today, and Alex Marciano, but especially Spicer, are going to have to fight to get themselves into the race win potential here.
You have the 3 drivers who have defined their season to this point, all with very contrasting fortunes in that qualifying session. That sets up a rather different prospect ahead of this race. We will see how it unfolds. But it is Lolo who qualified on pole position absolutely dominantly, and I can't wait to see how the Ferrari man can stave off the challenge of that chasing pack. We should be seconds out now from the Canadian Grand Prix, with Lolo at the front, currently 11th in the standings. We'll be eagerly anticipating a move up should this race go to good plan for him. But we are still waiting to get things underway again. Should just be seconds out. Remind you, it is Lolo with Tom alongside on that front row. Tom with an opportunity to try and claw some points back onto Alex Marciano. Alex Marciano, I believe, starting from P5, certainly can do plenty from there, but in a bit more trouble, I would say, than from the previous 2. Of course, Alex Marciano has been on pole position constantly throughout this session, but we have 5 lights at Montreal. And they're away for the Canadian Grand Prix. From the front, Lolo tries to fend off Tom and is going to do so, holding that inside line ahead of the McLaren. Next comes Galaxy Slayer, fending off Nick too. Heading through the first couple of corners, everyone seems to be remaining intact. For the time being, Lolo converts that pole position strongly as the rest of the field strings out behind. And lap 1 here at Montreal. You can see back there Triska and Zvidek swapping places. The Red Bull seems to be ghosted, rejoining now. As you can also see up the road, Alex Marciano was looking, actually defending from NL Slash in that second Williams. Those Williams had a story time last time out at Spa. Can they do it again? It seems as though it is nice and clean for the most part. AGK and Napo fighting away. The Aston Martin squeezed right to the edge of the track, has to yield that one, and Spicer is round the outside, manages to just about keep it out of the wall, does the McLaren on his comeback trail, looks to the inside for the hairpin, brakes very late and lunges. Napo gets caught on the Alpine, they recovered. Spicer is sent backwards almost, losing both of those places, and AGK gains both of them at the back. They're having a furious fight. It's up the front. Things seem to be all more civilized. It looks as though AGK is trying to cover off towards the final chicane, is going to do so. These 3 guys going at it. AGK already with a penalty. They've gone at it, but they're now struggling to hang on to that group in front.
Astonishingly, almost every single driver has stayed in the same position at the end of lap 1. Triska and Zvidek, the only 2 to gain or lose any. Triska gaining 2 and Zvidek losing 2. But yes, I was riding on board with Spicer for the start, and there was nothing he could do. There were no moves he could make. He was completely locked out of making any progress. And again, it was so brave to go around the outside of AGK for the left-hander down towards the hairpin, but it just didn't quite work. He braked too late, and AGK went straight back up the inside. But what a switchback that is from Spicer on Napple at the same corner, and that is him up to P12. Napple looks to the inside. He tries to do the same thing that Spicer did to him the previous lap, and he does it as well, but gets a terrible exit, and Spicer is finally through up to P12. But that's only 1 position, as Tom now takes the lead at the end of lap 2 from Lolo, and the McLaren driver looks to stamp his authority on this Canadian Grand Prix early on.
And further behind, Alex Marciano DRSing past Nick. Nick lost contact with the top 3 on his own, and so Alex is having to try and cover off in that big lap here for the championship leader to try and stay in contact with that top 3, now being led by second place man in the championship, race winner last time out at Spa, NLR Tom, who leads the way here at Montreal. Good first sector for Alex, looks like it's going to keep him in contention, but Nick seems to be struggling a little bit more for pace early on, so keep an eye out on that. In terms of the tyres, I said it's a simple race in terms of strategy, and at the moment that seems to be holding true. Every single driver opting for the hards as Spicer is up another position, getting past AGK then, heading out of turn number 7, moves up into 11th place, but he's going to have to work hard to get in that DRS, and the detection point is just coming up now, and it looks like he's going to get that. So Spicer making good moves early on in that McLaren, third in the championship, moves up to P11, has kept up with the group in front. That's 2 very important moves on this lap. Moves up into 11th, trying to hang with that group in front and keep on charging.
Yeah, here comes Lolo as well. Another DRS pass as the Ferrari retakes the lead of the race he started from pole position. Gets a bit of a dab of the grass. He went into the wall of champions chicane, but managed to hold on to it. And through they go. And just a little word on strategy. Indeed, we were right. Every single driver starting on the hard tyres. Not even anyone at the back. I think maybe the only driver really who might have considered an alternate strategy was Spicer, starting from the back, but no, even he's gone for the hard tyres, so no one taking a risk in terms of strategy, but who knows, things might change as the race goes on, especially if we get a safety car at an impromptu time.
Indeed, let's keep an eye out on that, and safety cars are common here at the Canadian circuit, so keep an eye out on that. Lolo leads from Tom, from then Galaxy Slayer. Alex Marciano has managed to bridge across right on the back of Galaxy Slayer in that V-Carb car, so really on the move and showing intimidating pace, currently 4th, but now you're going to see that DRS train kick in and make overtaking very, very hard for anyone that isn't in second place, and Lolo and Tom seem very content with this current race situation. They're not scrapping, they're not battling, they are just swapping the lead every single time they get to that casino straight, and they're doing exactly what they need to do really to maintain a sense of order at the front of this race, and those two I imagine will be perfectly happy and content to just relay, and that'll make things difficult for Galaxy Slayer Alex in behind. At the moment, the whole field seems to be relatively intact, although Napple has lost a bit of contact with Spicer and AGK caught up behind. So these two... Oh, AGK gets on the grass, heading into turn 3, manages to rescue it, but is going to lose a bit of time. Mistakes start to creep in there, and this is a track which is very punishing on errors.
It certainly is, and not even just because of the walls, because once you run out of DRS, it can be so hard to get yourself back in, and Vessel could be discovering that, although he gets a lovely exit there and manages to stay within 1 second, but only just. It was very close, and yeah, plenty of drivers struggling to stay within that 1 second range, and once you're out, it's so hard to get back in on most circuits on this game, but especially this one, just because people are so content to just swap positions like Lolo and Tom are doing, and just sit behind each other and then only scrap towards the end of the race, as long as they're smart. So yeah, they've got to be really careful not to make any mistakes, and of course the walls do loom large as soon as you get a bit of a snap off the rear tyres. So yeah, it's maximum focus at this circuit, all 35 laps.
It's so testing for the drivers, and of course another thing that we haven't even mentioned so far is penalties, as AGK Racing has found out already throughout this race. This track is absolutely unrelenting in track limits, penalties and violations. You'll see that, I imagine, these penalties for AGK Racing are not going to be the last. Of course, we saw a race at Kota that was where we saw penalties being picked up galore, but Montreal is certainly on a par with that, as Spicer lines up another move on Moranby this time, going to the inside of the hairpin. This time gets it stopped very nicely and gets a nose in front of the Kick Sauber, and also further up the road maybe can line up Zvidek too, because he's going to have more DRS, and Zvidek has dropped out of it too in the Red Bull. So Spicer going for another move. He's derating at the end of the straight, just about has enough speed to get through and move up into that 9th place, and Spicer again takes 2 in 1 lap, makes an error in the chicane, but manages to keep hold of that, but under so much pressure. Look at this, flanked from either side is Spicer. As to the inside goes Moranby, just gets pinched onto the apex there. Hold on to P10 as Videg lost 2 places in that altercation, down into P11, tried to fight back towards turn 1, but in the end got shuffled out. So Spicer, Moranby and Videg getting right into it. Spicer up to 9th, moving strongly then, but now a bit of a task there with no battery pretty much. 2 seconds to close to a train which is all running regimented pace at the pace of Lolo and Tom, who continue to routinely swap that race lead.
Yeah, and Spicer's got to look behind him as well, as Vi Moranby still in DRS range and could challenge him down to the chicane, although Spicer clearly the faster of the two. But yeah, it's tough for Spicer now, and once again you have to think about his qualifying, because if he had gone out on the inters and gained 2 positions and started this race from P11, then he might be in a completely different position right now. He could well be already in that DRS for the top 8 and not be sitting 2 seconds behind them like he is now. So yeah, just again you have to call that qualifying decision into question, but I'm sure he's just going to be thinking of closing that gap down. But that DRS is so strong. He lost 4 tenths on that straight, even without derating with the ERS, and Vi Moranby still sitting behind him and putting him under pressure at the moment.
Moranby does have quite a lot of battery in that kick Sauber. Maybe can try and use that to trade that 9th position with Spicer, but maybe will be more content to sit with Spicer. Spicer does seem to have phenomenal speed, there's no question about that, so these guys maybe looking to get pulled along, but Moranby very, very close this lap. We'll see if anything is going to be made done. Certainly in this DRS train, you're seeing things being relatively civilised, even into this hairpin, which does provide a lunging chance. You're seeing drivers, they are just sitting in and waiting for a later point in the race. And it is a group of 8 that is running very, very nicely and not really getting into it too much, as Lolo closes on Tom, not close enough this time, and again is not going to risk everything with a move. Does get a great run through the final chicane, and Galaxy Slayer may get interested, but in the end decides to yield, and Moranby and Spicer did swap, moving up as AGK Racing picks up yet another time penalty. Down in 13th place, not looking good for the Aston Martin at this stage. So Moranby moves 4th into 9th, but these guys aren't really gaining. They need to really get a move on. Moranby has tried to kick on as much as he can, but that gap just hovering just over 2 seconds at the moment.
Yeah, and Spicer had a bit of a problem through turn 2, especially on the exit, but he's quickly pulled that back in again at the next chicane. Brilliant exit there for the McLaren driver, and now he's back within 4 tenths of the kick Sauber, so he should be able to make the move again down to the chicane. I've just been watching on the onboard with these 3, and the exit that Spicer gets out of turn number 9 is unbelievable compared to Moranby and Zviadek. He's gaining well over a tenth on that exit every time, and here he goes again with the DRS. The top 2 swap again as well further up, and Spicer back into 9th place, but he's under pressure here, 2.6 seconds behind the main DRS train. He's really going to need to push. He's going to need some luck. He needs those cars ahead to start battling, I think, to get himself back in this as AGK decides that enough is enough for today.
AGK Racing calling it a day. That leaves just 12 cars on the grid for the time being. I do want to try and scan this group, because I did see, just while we were watching that Spicer Moranby Zviadek group, as Alex Marciano picks up a time penalty in P4, and with 4 cars in close proximity behind, not what the championship leader was looking for. That is a certainty. But I did see an end plate flying, and I wonder what car that may have came off of in this front group. Or maybe my eyes were just playing tricks on me, I'm not sure. But Lolo, Tom, Galaxy Slayer, Alex, they all seem to be fine. In fact, I don't notice it on any car. Maybe Vessel at the back in that Haas. There was maybe a bit of a concertina effect into that hairpin. Yes, Vessel does have damage on the left-hand side end plate, and that is going to be very costly through every single one of these chicanes. He's deciding to stay out and just brave it out. He does have enough speed to stay with that train at the moment and keep himself in contention, but that's certainly not what the Dutchman was looking for. Vessel now, damage to that car, but end plate damage is something that it can happen so easily here at Canada, and for the moment Vessel seems to be holding on okay to the group in front. As Nick picks up a time penalty, they're starting to really rack up now.
Yeah, they're going to start coming in now at this point in the race. Spicer, by the way, caught quite a bit on the last lap to the train. He was only 1.5 behind before the DRS kicked in, and he lost it all again. But it shows that he is closing in. He's got the pace to close in on that train, and he just needs something to go his way in front. Just someone to lose it, or someone to battle or send it at the hairpin, something to get himself back in this one. But it's back up to 1.9 as he goes wide in the hairpin, and Vimoranvi's right behind and might be able to get him into the chicane here. Here he goes, the kick salvo driver to the outside. There's nothing Spicer can do with only so little ERS on that McLaren, but gets a beautiful exit out of the chicane, but it's not good enough as he has a little bit of a love tap on the back of Vimoranvi's car. And again, they go through with the kick Sauber driver ahead this time, and 2 seconds is a big mistake from Moranvi on the exit of turn 2, but Spicer can't profit from it, and they're losing more and more time as Spicer pushes him onto the grass. Spicer impatient there, he gets past. Sviadek is going to go around the outside of the kick Sauber as well as they go through the next couple corners. Still side by side they go, and this is helping Spicer, but yeah, I don't think Moranvi's going to be too happy with that.
No, certainly not. I was on board with Spicer and just continued to plunge into that corner, and Moranvi ultimately losing out from that, unfortunately, down into P11 then. Up in front, Vessel has been detached. That wing damage is now really starting to pay, but that tells you, because the gap to the train behind has remained the same, how much those guys have lost with that battling as Sviadek slipstream Spicer moving across, ends up finding that space to get through. Does Sviadek, moves up into position number 9. Spicer picks up a time penalty. I think the red mist is starting to show here for the man in third place in the championship. Sviadek does get through. Spicer picking up that time penalty. He's driving in frustration at the moment, but Sviadek getting in front, and well, this recovery drive seems to have taken a bit of a turn for NLR Spicer at this point.
Yeah, and well, they're now well over 3.5 seconds behind the main train because Vessel has dropped out of it, which is not even worse news for the McLaren. He's going to have the DRS again on Sviadek, but yeah, like you say, I think red mist is certainly the term I would use to describe his driving at the moment. He is not happy in that cockpit. It's a big mistake from the Red Bull, and Spicer takes advantage, but Sviadek's just going to have the DRS again on him, down towards the Wall of Champions chicane, and there's nothing Spicer can do about it. Vessel's gone deep further ahead with that wing damage, but Sviadek doesn't quite get the exit he would have wanted, and I think Spicer's position will be safe as a result. The top two, the other McLaren, meanwhile, gets back into the lead of the race, NLR Tom, as Slash is the next victim of the white lines. But Spicer staying ahead of the Red Bull, and he's right behind this Haas now, and he's going to look to make his way into P8. He goes down the inside for turn 1, sends it on the stricken Haas, and gets the move done. But 4 seconds, over 4 seconds is the gap to the top 7 now, and you know, this will be the last time I bring it up, I promise, but that qualifying decision to retire, just 2 more places, I really do think he would have been in that DRS train. So Spicer, I think, is going to be ruining missed opportunities today.
And that can really be said for, well, really 2 of the 3 races so far throughout this season, is Lolo and Tom actually swapping into the hairpin this time. A little bit unusual, and everyone begins to stack up. Nick was looking to the outside of Alex Marciano. They had a phenomenal battle last time out at Spa, disputing that 2nd position. And Nick trying to get through, but both of them on that overtake button. The top 7 just got very, very close heading in to that hairpin, and again they get close up at the front, going into that final chicane. Things will boil over surely at some point as further back Vessel moves through on Spicer, understeers massively, and into the wall goes the McLaren, and backwards was forced out by the understeering Haas of Vessel, and Spicer backwards, goes straight into the pit lane, and predictably has had enough tonight. So NLR Spicer, an absolute evening to forget. That is 2 cars now gone from this Canadian Grand Prix as Moranby moves through on Vessel 2. Vessel just unable to rotate the car at all through that final chicane. Is down into 10th position now. Triska and Nick swapping further up the road. Triska moving up into that top 5, but Spicer gone from this race, and now we're seeing that attrition factor that is akin with the circuit of Montreal, just absolutely kicking in at this point.
Yeah, the top 7 still perfectly calm at the moment. They're all perfectly happy to race with each other and just be nose to tail at the moment. But yeah, behind them, all heck has been breaking loose. Zviadek currently leads the rest of the drivers in P8, best of the rest. And there are still positions on offer. Napple maybe 13 seconds behind the points, but Vessel's coming into the pits and DNFs. So that means as long as you finish this Canadian Grand Prix now, you will be taking some points home with you. So Napple, you know, staying with it, sticking with the race has paid off. He's going to get some points today. Oh, Lolo, big mistake for the Ferrari, who was leading this race, and it's nearly 3 wide, and suddenly the calm, tranquil air between these top 7 has been disrupted. And is that damage to the Ferrari as well as they head down to the next chicane? Yeah, it is. No front right end plate for Lolo, and the pole sitters race has just gone turned upside down. It's a disastrous mistake, and Tom is now leading with Galaxy Slayer behind, and Alex Marciano, the championship leader. He may have a track limits penalty, but there's going to be plenty more where that came from for many other drivers, I'm sure, as we're not even at the halfway mark of this race. It's going to be 3 wide down towards the final chicane, and Galaxy Slayer, we have a new race leader on lap 16, as it's the V-Carb who gets through, and look at the gap to Alex Marciano, who also found his way through. Triska's trying to go down the inside of turn 1 as well on NLR Tom, and the top 2 who are calmly trading places for 16 laps. Now it's all gone wrong. Lolo's coming to the pits for a new front wing, and NLR Tom is down to 3rd.
Oh my goodness, this race turns on the 16th lap, and now we are looking at such a different situation in this race. Galaxy Slayer is trying to break clear here. Look at this, going all in that V-Carb. Alex Marciano trying not to let that happen. Triska is pressuring Tom. Tom got absolutely swamped on the back straight there. Without the DRS, there was absolutely nothing he could do, and now he is on the defensive after having such a clean race up to this point, but even more so that can be said for the heartbroken Shirley Lolo. Emerges just 2 seconds in front of Napple. Was running such a perfect race up to this point, but at Montreal, that is how quickly it can turn. As I said at the start of this race, it is a track which punishes errors to the absolute degree, as now we're seeing a completely different race situation as we hit half distance here at Montreal. Look at how close they are now for the top 4. I don't think there's an image of tranquility anymore. These guys are beginning to scrap, and of course maybe also not only because of Lolo dropping out of this group, but because we are getting towards that pit phase, and that battle for positioning is surely going to start heating up.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, Lolo is going to get a very nice undercut, but he did have to replace his wing, and he's going to have to take those mediums quite a long way, although they will go quite a long way on this circuit, so I don't think he'll be in too much trouble for tyres, but he will be in comparison to others, and that front wing change, of course, as well. And he wasn't the only one who got wing damage out of that whole exchange. Look at IRT Nick. No front right end plate on that Williams either. So yeah, it's just been a disaster for several drivers, and suddenly NLR Tom, who was again just trading the lead for so long in this race, now down to P4 as Triska finds his way through. What a race the Alpine driver's been having so far. No penalties to his name. NLR Tom dives into the pits for an undercut. He has had enough of all of this, and Galaxy Slayer still leads from Alex Marciano, who looks briefly to the inside of turn 1 but decides that would be a foolish send to go for. 4 and stays behind, but Triska is in a great position here, but a Galaxy Slayer, no penalties to his name, leading the race after all of that. Incredible scenes here in Canada. Where's Tom going to come out? There's the Ferrari in the distance, in the background as I ride on board with the McLaren, but NLR Tom well ahead thanks to that wing change that Lolo had to make. And now this race has gotten very interesting indeed. Lolo, who started from pole position, a glorious pole position, is now 4 seconds behind the driver he was trading with for 16 laps just a few laps ago.
Well, now this is such a test. We saw how fast Lolo was in that qualifying session, as you said, but now it is a real test of race pace. 2-lap older tyres, and we more so for the rest of the drivers in that leading train who surely have to pit in this lap or the next, as Alex Marciano takes the lead away from Galaxy Slayer right before coming into the pits. That's timely for the championship leader as the top, well, 3 of the top 4 do come in. Slash following from the back as Triska decides to extend and may sacrifice a bit of track position, because I do think that undercut is going to be mighty powerful. We shall see. Tom will try and take advantage of that, maybe even get out of DRS range. Will certainly be looking to be at the head of this train as his rival Alex Marciano gets onto that throttle pedal, will be wanting to stay with Tom or even potentially be right up there with him. Look at that, Alex Marciano right there with him out of that pit exit. Just about doesn't cross over the pit exit line. We did have a bit of an inquiry about that at Spa with Alex Marciano, but he's managed to re-emerge in a net second place, it will be, with a lap fresher tyres than Tom. He does have a track limits penalty, but I think other than that, Alex Marciano can be pretty pleased with the way this race has unfolded to this point.
Yeah, he does have that penalty, but NLR Tom now back into the lead of this train. He does have 1 lap older tyres, but ultimately that's not going to be too much of an issue for him, I don't think, as they come down towards the hairpin. So Tom will be happy to be back in control of this race, but surely not for long, as the championship leader is going to have DRS on him, and the top 2 from last race are now the net top 2 in this one as well. Triska into the pits, so we'll see where he comes out, but here comes the championship leader down the inside of NLR Tom, and it's a simple DRS pass as he takes the lead of this race. Can you believe it? For the first time on lap 21 of this Grand Prix. Where's Triska going to come out? He's just coming out the pit lane now. Where are the other drivers? They're just ahead of him. He's going to get ahead of Slash though on the exit. Brilliant stop from Triska, and he is still in this train with no penalty to his name and could be a dark horse for the race win.
That was a brilliant in-lap from Triska. Maybe that undercut not quite as powerful as I would have expected, as Triska manages to stay in contention, has the best tyres in this train, so he can go hunting. It is a group of 5 for the lead, with Lolo trying to get in. Lolo with commendable pace, it has to be said, with older tyres, but against a train of drivers, how much can you really do at this stage, as Alex Marciano leads Tom and begins to stretch his legs out in front? And I don't think Tom is going to be able to get back in front on this lap for a certainty, but Alex does seem to have super pace on these medium tyres at this stage, and that's going to put more pressure on the drivers behind to stay with him. Looks like Tom can hang on in there at least with that DRS down the Casino Straight, and they're going to come over the line to start lap 22 here at Canada. It is a group of 5, 3 drivers without penalties, 2 drivers with them. So Alex, well, leading the race from the front, but he'll certainly be hoping for mistakes from the drivers behind to give himself a chance at this. At the moment, Tom, Galaxy Slayer, Triska, they've kept it clean. The question is, can they do that even more in these last 14 laps? The pressure's going to be on.
And don't count out Lolo just yet. He's 3 seconds behind. He still doesn't have a penalty. So he's at the moment in a net P5 thanks to Slash's penalty. And if these guys start battling, we know how much pace he's got in that Ferrari. So he could well catch back up and get himself back into this battle. But 13 and a half laps left to go in this race. Not a lot of time, but we'll see how he can manage that. I'll keep an eye on that gap for you. But NL NLR Tom now in DRS and right behind this Aston Martin. He didn't have a good lap last time, but this time he has done enough and he gets ahead back into the race lead on the Aston Martin, and NLR Tom leads once again, but Galaxy Slayer just in the background, staying in the DRS range. That is what he needs to do. Same with Triska, and Slash just about there as well, but struggling. I think he's the slowest out of these five, and you can see in the corners he loses a lot of time, especially there at turn 2 he lost quite a bit, but he's got to be careful here, especially with this low ERS. He could end up dropping out of this one.
How many times through last season and this have we seen ML Slash at the back of a train, just hanging on in there and trying to pick up the pieces of the drivers in front? Of course, still that fresh in their memory, that heartbreak he had at Brazil last season. Currently hanging on in there, trying to keep it honest. Of course, we've seen Nick drop out of this train himself earlier on, his teammate, after running up there in the top 4 for most of this race. So Slash trying to keep Williams up there. He runs in 5th position just behind Triska, who looks to have quite a lot of speed too in that Alpine, has the best tyres in the group and is using a lot of battery here to close down Galaxy Slayer towards the chicane. Pulls out of the slipstream, they'll swap for the lead, but this move for 3rd may be more significant. Triska gets through as Alex Marciano gets another time penalty, and that one could be much more costly. Triska sets the fastest lap. He looks really menacing now on the back of NLR Tom, but Alex with 2 penalties drops him out behind everyone in this train at the moment.
As it stands, he could even drop down to P6, the championship leader. Lolo needs to find some more time. Slash, well, never mind. P5 now, but Lolo, he may have had a lot of qualifying pace, but the race pace on these medium tyres doesn't seem to be there, although they are 3 laps older than everyone else, so you've got to keep that in mind too. But even so, he'll be disappointed to see that gap just increasing, going up and up as the race goes on. But Alex Marciano in the lead by 0.6, but with 6 seconds of penalties. Potentially dropping to P4 as it stands, and well, NLR Tom, Triska and Galaxy Slayer are the ones to watch now. Can they battle with each other? Will they? The only hope that Alex Marciano has is that those 3 are going to know that they're battling only with each other for this race win. Could they scrap too hard and all lose each other enough time that Alex can get out of DRS and start to stretch his legs?
That would be quite a turn of events. We will see if it does happen. Well, Triska has proven that he can overtake in the DRS train a couple of laps ago, getting through on Galaxy Slayer. NLR Tom, of course, is a different kettle of fish, but certainly will be pressing hard. And again, Triska, I think, on this tyre, with the freshest tyres, seems to have at the moment the most ultimate pace in this lead group. So Triska can try and use that to good advantage, and only a 1/4 of a second behind Tom in this middle sector. So we'll see down that back straight. And when you're in 3rd place in the train, you just have to keep the pressure on. Of course, overtaking is not easy if you're 3rd in the train, like it may be if you're 2nd in the train, but you've got to force this harmonious relationship which always exists between the top 2 drivers in the train, and try and force them to push hard and even race each other. Triska can try and deploy his battery when he can to pressure Tom into battling Alex where he doesn't want to, or even get through on Alex if Tom moves past him too and move him down 2 positions. Those are Triska's possibilities, and he did get a good run out of the chicane, but Tom is going to go for the race lead here. I think he knows the threat from Triska. He's sitting on the inside. He wants to try and hold that 2nd place, covering that inside line from Triska, and that reveals a lot about Tom's intentions at this stage in the race. He wants to try and sit in, wants to try and let Alex Marciano do all the work, but if he's not careful, he's got to watch out, because Triska, as I said earlier, looks really threatening in that 3rd place.
He really does, and for a moment there I thought he was going to go for it around the outside of turn 1. It's a perfectly valid overtaking option, the outside of turn 1, because it gives you the inside for turn 2, and it's so difficult to hold around the outside of turn 2, because you can just get crowded out on the exit and have no grip on that outer edge of the track. As here comes Triska, he's going to go for it on the inside of the hairpin of the McLaren of NLR Tom, and Tom leaves him the room, but here comes Triska. He's still side by side with Tom as they head down towards the final chicane on lap 26. They're still side by side, and it's going to be 3 wide perhaps. Alex Marciano holds the inside line, but he's going to get double over overtaken here. There's nothing that the championship leader can do. Tom leads the way, but Triska is in a brilliant position now.
Triska following Tom through as Napple crashes out of the race, and that's a full safety car. Full safety car, oh my goodness. Napple bending it, that's out of turn 4, and full SC deployed, neutralising the race. My oh my, just 9 drivers left. Tom and Triska getting Alex right before that safety car comes out. Unfortunately for pretty much the entire field, they were just past the pit lane by that time, so unable to come in and take advantage of it at least immediately. But the safety car hasn't picked anyone up. Lolo will be very happy about this, certainly, because that's going to give him a bit of a chance to overtake some of these drivers that have penalties. But Tom and Triska, that was a dramatic moment, huh? Triska was boxed in and just tried to barge his way into a space and force that way open. In the end, that lost the momentum, and Tom was able to hang on to that race lead. But now, what do these drivers do? In theory, it doesn't change much for the leaders, but do you come in if you're at the front? Because certainly some of the drivers at the rear you'd expect to be coming in here for a fresh set of boots to attack in these final laps.
Oh, you've got to come in, I think. The mediums are going to be so inferior to fresh softs that you're just going to have no chance. I would expect the whole grid to come in here, and yeah, they're all piling into the pit lane, so no benefit to staying out here. You might get to the front, but it won't last for long. And yeah, indeed, all 9 drivers into the pits for fresh tyres. It's softs for most, I would expect. Maybe someone will go onto the mediums, but the softs last quite a way around here, so I would be surprised. Alex Marciano does. He goes for the medium tyres, and every single other driver on the softs, Alex Marciano, well, it was a costly error, and he's actually been jumped by Galaxy Slayer in the pit lane as well. So the championship leader, he's got 6 seconds of penalties. He's on, well, in theory, worse tyres than everyone else. I don't think it'll make too much difference, but he'll be maybe a little better towards the end. But honestly, the softs last for quite a while around here. So Alex Marciano, the championship leader, looks to be in a spot of bother in this race for pretty much the first time this season so far.
I think at this point we have to take stock with the entire field bunched up now of penalties. So top 3 all clean. We don't know about warnings. They may be under pressure, maybe on 2 warnings. So those
check that.
Oh, that's fine. That'd be absolutely grand. Lolo in 7th, also without a time penalty as it stands, and probably the driver that has stood to gain the most from this safety car period. Alex Marciano, 6 seconds. Slash, 6 seconds. Zvideg, 3 seconds. Moranvi, 9 seconds. And Nick with 6 seconds. Those penalties mean an awful lot more now than they did a couple of minutes ago. But now, safety cars coming in at the end of this lap, and Tom is now controlling the pace. Triska following, and very attentive, I'm sure, of the McLaren driver's movements. The PSF 5 champion building this up. When does he go? There's still an awful lot of room to go down this straight. The safety car is pulled in. He can go whenever he wants. He's still sitting in first gear now, shifts into second. Triska still waiting, weaving from side to side. He clearly doesn't think Tom is going to launch it just yet, but he is leaving absolutely no gap. Shifts up to the third gear in that Alpine now, who has driven through the field spectacularly in this race as Tom hesitates out of the chicane. I don't know if Triska's going to be too happy about that. Now goes, plants that throttle pedal, and away Tom goes, and that McLaren leads Triska away. Galaxy Slayer responds well in 3rd place, and it looks like everyone is going to slot into line. So on to the 29th lap of this Canadian Grand Prix. All drivers but Alex Marciano have gone for the soft tyres, and you're seeing immediately with Slash all over him, those mediums will not have the grip to match it on this restart.
Yeah, this could really shake up the grid as well in these last 7 laps, as Moranvi gets absolutely sent by Nick on the inside. What an overtake. Definitely move of the race so far from IRT Nick. He's up into 8th place, but yeah, soft tyre pace can be very, very different to medium and hard pace for many drivers. So this could really shake up the grid this last stint here. But Alex Marciano, like you said already, struggling through the corner corners, especially the corner exits. He's got so much less grip than everyone else at this stage. As Slash all over the back of that Aston. They are fighting for position, those two. They're both on 6 seconds. As Zviadek as well under pressure from Lolo, the pole sitter, who's up into P6 now. It's a net P4 for him as he recovers after that damage he got in the first stint. NLR Tom leads the way though from Triska and Galaxy Slayer, and those top two extremely impressive. Neither of them a single track limits warning so far this race. Galaxy Slayer has 2, and he's had 2 for the last 20 or so laps, so he's living on the edge as well. But yeah, those top 3 very, very impressive, but especially Tom and Triska. And well, Triska, I said he was a dark horse for the race win earlier. He is no longer a dark horse. He is one of the favourites for the race win now.
No warnings in 30 laps in Montreal. That is astonishing. How on earth have they done that? And that leaves some margin for error and a lot less pressure in this stint. But maybe the pressure is palpable because these two are fighting for a race win out there at the moment. Out in front, Galaxy Slayer struggling to keep up, and actually Alex Marciano, once he's got those mediums up to temperature, actually seems to be flying along very nicely. They'll swap for the lead, but it looks like they'll swap for third as well, as Alex Marciano moves to the inside and gets in front of Galaxy Slayer. That's a key move for the Aston Martin, but he needs to put time into some of these guys to make sure he's not losing out too much from those penalties. But 109.4 with the medium tyres, that is incredible. He used a lot of battery on that last lap, but still, Alex Marciano, well, maybe we'll have to eat our words because that pace. Okay, granted he has 6 seconds of penalties, but that is a scary prospect no matter who you are.
It really is. And I mean, to be honest, him overtaking Galaxy Slayer could be advantageous for the VCARB driver because he was not able to keep up with those top 2 and was quickly falling off. But even now he's quickly falling off the back of Alex Marciano as well. But Alex putting everything into those medium tyres at the moment. He is right behind those top 2 and he's going to put them under pressure despite the penalties. He looks to the inside even of the hairpin. I don't think he meant to, but he was forced to right at the end there. Tom just reacted just a little bit with the steering, but Alex managed to avoid pile driving into the back of him as Tom retakes the lead, and Alex Marciano is going to go down the inside of Triska into the wall of Champions chicane. He yields in the end, but goodness me, Triska would have had his heart in his mouth there as he fights for this race win. Alex Marciano on 6 seconds of penalties, and if he continues to battle with these top 2, they might start getting a little bit frustrated with him because they're going to think in their minds, why are you fighting with us? You've got 6 seconds of penalties, you're just ruining our race. But Alex is perfectly entitled to race them. It doesn't matter how many penalties he's got. He can go down the inside, he can put them under pressure, maybe force them into some penalties of their own. So, you know, it's all on the line for the championship leader. He's got the least to lose out of this top 3, and so he's going to put them under as much pressure as he can.
He is doing absolutely everything in his power to keep that pressure on as Triska gets very close to Tom towards the hairpin 2, nearly into the back of the second place man in the championship. They get onto that throttle pedal once again. Those top 3 now shooting themselves at the camera and getting up to top speed now as Triska gains on Tom, and Alex Marciano is not in position to capitalise, so it's a relatively calm affair amongst the top 2 at the moment, but that is sure to change in the laps to come as they continue to swap and change and exchange that race lead. Of course, Triska also 4th place in the standings at the moment, stands to gain a lot there. 2nd, of course, in the opening round in Australia, and now potentially looking at a race win with 3 laps to go. But as you said, it is Alex Marciano that's really the joker in this situation, just trying to cause chaos and force these guys into errors, putting all the pressure on. And NLR Tom, I do not think, is going to be happy to see that Aston Martin behind him, who seems to have incredible grip at this stage, pressuring Tom, looking towards that inside line, surely not into here, no, does in the end yield it. Heading in to turn number 8, but Alex Marciano pressuring Tom all the way. Tom is not going to be comfortable in this position as Alex swarms, goes from left to right and keeps that McLaren firmly on his toes.
Watch Zviadek here down towards the last chicane. He's got plenty of battery, and the two cars ahead of him have got basically nothing. So this could be a double overtake potentially for the Red Bull. He's certainly going to get slashed, but what about Lolo? The top two swap places, but here comes Zviadek into P5. He gets it. Brilliant ERS management from the Red Bull driver, and he's only got 3 seconds of penalties as well. Galaxy Slayer finally gets a penalty on the board as well, but he's still in a net P3 right now. But if Zviadek can catch them back up, if they continue to battle these top four, then Galaxy Slayer could be in danger of losing that podium to the Red Bull, or even to Lolo, who's in the mix as well with no penalties to his name. The pole sitter for this race. He's in DRS range of the Red Bull as well, barely, but loses it again through that chicane, and it's going to be so tight here in these last couple laps. And yeah, at the moment it looks like Lolo might get the podium after all, but who knows what might happen in these last 1.5 laps. NLR Tom and Triska battling it out for this race win. Who is going to take this?
Look at the top four. They are nose to tail heading through that hairpin then. As Alex Marciano squirms trying to apply that throttle pedal, he nearly got Triska into turn one at the beginning of this lap, and he's closing again. The Alpine's under pressure here. Triska will want to be second, I'm sure, going into the final lap. Alex Marciano gets also close, and Galaxy Slayer also close to the Aston too. So Triska, what does he do here? He can get Tom if he wants to into turn one, but does he want to? Tom covers off, and here comes Alex Marciano to the inside of turn one, gets pinched by Triska, and that's vital. That is imperative for Triska to hold on to that second place. Alex Marciano is all over the road out of turn two, just about managing to hold on to it. Triska is having to defend through every corner when he wants to be setting up a move down the back straight. Alex Marciano lunges again, and this time Triska again holds it round the outside of turn 6 and 7. And all that poking and all that prodding, is that enough for NLR Tom, who now has half a second lead, and Galaxy Slayer now is attacking Alex Marciano. Forget the penalties, these guys do not care. They are going at it. Now, just 1 sector to go. Is Triska close enough? Is he near enough? Can he take advantage? Here we go. Exit out of the hairpin is going to be absolutely definitive. Alex Marciano all over the road again, but it's Triska and Tom we've got to be looking at. Tom breaking that slipstream, moves to the left, then to the right. Here comes the Alpine. Triska with the slipstream, goes to the inside. Triska leads with 1 corner to go. Can he get through cleanly? Yes, he can. Triska, right at the death, is going to snatch it away from NLR Tom. Triska wins in Montreal. Tom run out of it in second place, and Lolo somehow ends up on the podium after all of that. What a finale that was. Triska had to put up with relentless attacks from Alex Marciano, parried absolutely all of them, and in the end had enough to blast past NLR Tom and take a race win with nothing left in the race. That was such a finale. Wow.
13 drivers, who cares? Who cares when you can have a race like that? What a race from the Dutchman. Absolutely incredible. He was towards the middle of the DRS train at the start of the race, and he wasn't really even in the conversation for the race win, and then it only became apparent towards the middle part of the race after Lolo had his mistake and NLR Tom started dropping, with Triska having no penalties. Only then did we think, could this man come out of nowhere and win this race? And win it he has done by 3/10 from NLR Tom. What a brilliant performance. And well, he was in P4 in the championship before this race, and he's going to close up on those top 3 after that one. NLR Tom, a very strong P2 even so, and Lolo on the podium in the end, and no penalties really paid off. Galaxy Slayer and Zviadek make up the top 5. Alex Marciano down in 6th place. He did pick up the fastest lap, so he will get a point for that, but he'll be disappointed with how that one's gone. Slash in P7, Nick and Weimar Anvi in P8 and 9, with Napple, Vessel, Spicer, crucially, and AGK all out of the race. Wow, absolutely brilliant. What a race.
What a finale to the race, with the Triska winning it. And yes, keep an eye out for Triska, moving very, very strongly, of course, in this race. He just seems to manage races so well. And Triska, Wow, that was quite something. Again, fending off all those attacks from Alex Marciano, holding it round the outside every single time, and then having enough to get through on Tom right at the end. Tom denied, but well, 4 podiums from 4 races. I don't think Tom's going to be too gutted about that one. Just a quick look to see what that would do to the championship. Alex Marciano picking up a sixth position. That will be 5 points, but 6 points with the fastest lap. So Alex Marciano goes on to 54. NLR Tom with a second place is going to move to 48. So once again, that lead begins to come down. And, well, it looked as though Alex Marciano was head and shoulders above everyone else. But NLR Tom just challenging that narrative and drawing ever closer.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. That was fantastic from NLR Tom and Triska in that race, all race long. And Triska can be very, very happy with that performance. The game gave him driver of the day. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. A sublime race from the Alpine driver, and yeah, not to mention NLR Tom. Both of them, I didn't check at the end, but 30 laps of Canada with not a single track limits warning, and it really, really paid off at the end of that one. So congratulations to the both of them, and to Lolo for persevering after that mistake in the first stint and coming through to finish on the podium thanks to having no penalties. So some real standout performances today, and well, we'll just have to see how the championship shakes out for next week's race.
Absolutely. And another thing to mention with Triska, Triska was one of the drivers that got caught out in qualifying and wasn't able to set a valid lap time when the track was still dry. So that speaks to the quality of that drive coming back from that position. Clearly had a lot of speed, managed the race beautifully, and in the end won all the critical battles to come away with that race win. Triska will now be very solidly in third place in the standings after that one. So yes, certainly good prospects for the future for the Alpine driver. Let's see how that is going to continue to unfold. But that is 4 rounds. My goodness, already 4 rounds into the season in the books. And we come towards next time out, the Qatar Grand Prix. Of course, the Qatar was a watershed moment in the championship race last season here in PSF3. We'll see if it is going to be the same next time out. Round 5 of the championship is going to be at the Lusail International Circuit. Make sure not to miss it. And after that, I believe we will have a break week, so a chance to calm down and reset after what has already been some chaotic action in the first 4 rounds of season 38 of PSF3. So I think that is going to be just about it for tonight. Thank you once again to our sponsors, GT Omega and Sim Racing Centre. Make sure to look in the description for links to their sites. Thank you all for watching, and thank you to Ghost for being alongside me once again. It is always a pleasure to commentate with you. Well, let's bring that to a close then for the 4th round of the championship, the Canadian Grand Prix now in the books. And well, until next time, we'll see you later.